Hi guys, I'm Doug.
And I'm Pat.
Welcome back to the Doug and Pat Show. What do you think about that intro? I didn't want to expose us, but people have been talking online on the interweb, and they've been saying about us.
About you.
Well, about
Where have you been and how old are you?
that's something like that.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
word "old" keeps coming up. I guess we could just die, but at this
Yeah,
point in time, we're just gonna, not. We're not gonna die.
we're vintage.
But Patrick, there is something that can keep you young, and it's not emu oil, not the pipe. It would be modern, be modern. So as part of our series that we have on being modern, we did the Origin pedal. Today we're going to do the Kemper profiling amplifier, which was so technical and so mysterious to us that we actually
And
have
so
to bring
alien
in.
to
It's
us.
I know
I mean, it's
it's
not
like
any-
it's like it is alien to us.
It is.
We're two map guys
Yeah.
for a long time, pretty long time,
Yeah. At least a few
at
years.
least for a couple years. So this amplifier is it's like it's evil almost. But let's find out how evil it is. We have to bring in a youngster to guide us through this thing, and we're going to bring in Jeremy from Five Star Guitar, who owns a Kemper, and he's going to walk us through what the heck it does. So let's get Jeremy in here, and let's see what he has to say about this Kemper amplifier,
Okay.
because we're modern. Kemper, German made.
German made.
Tell us about this thing. What does this thing
Sure.
do?
It's in the realm of the digital modeling sort of thing, but it doesn't model in the traditional sense. If you're like me, you grew up on line 6 as the benchmark modeling amp, which is
Pretty well known.
very well known, and they even if they didn't start the thing, they're the company that made it accessible for guys like me when you're a poor college student and see somebody claim that here in this little $200 box has all the vintage amps you'd ever want.
Right.
Because at that point it's like, how many real 65 deluxe reverbs have I seen? Not that many. And how many can I afford? 0. But I can afford this that has that and
Yeah.
all this other stuff. So that was my foray into digital stuff. Was just as an affordable way to get into a variety of sounds that I just didn't
Did
have
you have
access
one
to
of those?
anyways. I did. I had the if you remember the Flextone series of amps. I had one of those, and I used it for quite a while. And I mean, it wasn't perfect, and especially one of the things that it did do for me though was get me really excited about certain sounds, and especially an amp that I had never seen. So it was like, man, if I ever really see one of these in real life, it's like, it's a sighting of a celebrity now, because the mythology in my mind built around the digital model of it was
Wow.
big. So
That's kind of a big deal. That's a big idea right there. So a lot of
yeah.
people don't have access to these vintage amplifiers. They have no idea. Can't walk into a music store anymore and see them, like what Jeremy just said. So yeah, so it maybe gets the interest up. That technology for the Line 6, is that the technology for this?
Not exactly. The way that Line 6 went about it was to give you the feeling of the interaction of the amp. So if a champ only has a tone knob on it and no bass mid, their model of it only has would only have one knob, and the other ones either didn't do anything or you could render them neutral and get the interaction. So it was kind of like you got to play with the real thing in a digital realm. And so hence the modeling, because they literally tried to build a model of the original that they had. And so so that was the phrase that they used, and that's what stuck. What sets this apart, what makes this a little bit different, is it's not necessarily modeling in the sense of dial in Marshall Silver Jubilee and everything on here magically acts like an original Jubilee. What this does is it will send test signals through a real Jubilee and capture whatever sound you dialed in, and that becomes kind of ground zero for tweaking beyond that. And so the idea being, whatever, if you say somebody with some cool amps,
Like you do.
Yeah, yeah. Like I've got, I don't know if you guys have seen any cool amps around.
No, not lately.
But if you, let's say you ran across one,
Okay.
and you could dial in a sound, mic the thing up because you got to capture it somehow, and that whole signal path can get captured, saved as a preset basically. And so rather than ever having a coded copy or emulation of something, this is basically like sampling the real thing and then saving that sonic signature for future use. So it captures the whole signal path. So however if you use an SM57 to mic your cab, it's in there too.
So you
But
capture a moment in time. So like then if you take and change the mic out or start changing the interactive tone controls on the amp, you can do that again and
yeah.
capture multiple profiles.
And
of
every
what
time you
it
do
is.
that, the knobs for the EQ section, the bass, mid, treble, presence, on the Kemper stay at 12 o'clock. Every time you capture it, whatever you captured, it doesn't know that you turned the bass down. It just captures what you did. The only one it really makes a guess at is the gain, the amount of distortion or amount of breakup that you have. I think what it does is it knows the test signal, like the pure test signal that it sent through, and it measures what it gets back after running through the amp, and however much clipping it got. This test signal clipped 40%, it's on 4. So it doesn't necessarily guess. Again, it doesn't guess where you had the knob at. I was kind of telling you before we did this. I have a blackface bassman. I dimed the thing as much breakup as that bassman would get, and the profile came out at like 5 because at the most that bassman could break or clip the signal was about half of a fully clipped signal going through. So,
And you could clip it more than, and once you have a profile in there with the gain control on this thing.
yeah. So if it guesses that that signal was clipped at about 5% of what you could potentially clip a signal at, that's 5 on the dial. So you can turn it to 7 or 9, and I can get a signal that would be like clipping a blackface bassman way more than mine could ever do. But it gives you a kind of a rough reference point for it, and you can tweak from there. So yeah, stuff that doesn't break up much or at all, you can really crank it up past, get way more distortion. What would this tweed amp sound like if it could clip even more without modifying it or throwing a pedal in the front of it? You could see what happens. Maybe it sucks.
And conversely, you could also turn it down. So if you have a 100-watt plexi, then you could start it on 1 and then 2 and then 3 and then work through all that stuff, because all those controls on those amps have a lot to do with what it sounds like. So you could capture those moments in time over. How many profiles could you store in this?
I think it will hold in its internal memory about 1,000. But I think once we fire this thing up, I'll plug it into my computer. There's a little software program that you can run on an interface or on your computer. USB cable runs to the back of this thing, and in real time I can search among 14,000 profiles, and you just double click the thing on your computer and it loads it onto here. It's really quick to happen because the actual file size for each profile is only 4 kilobytes, which is like a small Word file. It actually is a MIDI file, is what it is. Whatever information the thing is encoded as a MIDI file, you can. Now we're getting nerdy into computer programming.
This is what we're known for.
But if you want to hack the thing, save it on your computer, and it will save as a .kpir or something like that file. Just change the file extension to .mid, and now it's a MIDI file, and you can go in there and screw with parameters. And
dang,
yeah,
that's a really small file. So it's definitely not an audio sample.
So
much. It's an analysis sample.
It's whatever it is. It's just like parameters inside here that are saying, handle the signal this way.
Yeah. There's a proprietary software program that's in this. Okay, so the technique that's involved in analyzing this, which you sort of alluded to, which would be it sends a pink noise or a white noise into the amplifier.
Sounds like dial-up internet.
Yeah, that's basically the most. That's what guys use to do real-time analyzers. Just like it sounds like you mic'd up a 747 on takeoff. What it and it analyzes that using the microphone that you're using.
Yeah.
And so that it's analyzing that. So if you change the mic out, and all that stuff. It
Yeah,
has a
move the
different
mic over an
profile.
inch, you get a new tone.
Ah,
Might as well reprofile it because it's a new sound. And you probably could sit there and tweak parameters because there's a lot you can tweak. But you also can just, 0 inches, 3 inches, 6 inches, 12 inches,
right.
have a new profile. And that becomes the center point for tweaking from there. So either way.
And you are using this yourself exclusively as a in the studio amplifier, right?
Yeah, I use this as a way to document sounds I get with real amps. So I know that, especially when they first announced this and guys couldn't quite wrap their head around it, um, because they're used to. Well, no, I just mean in terms of like comparing it to line six, right?
Right.
Like
Yeah, yeah.
this can have an infinite number of whatever. Well, and give guys an infinite number of anything, and they freak, right? Like
Right.
yes, I can, I can do that. It will replace all my amps. It kind of did the opposite for me, but the way that I use it is I've got, my music room looks like this. And so when we go to record, I hook up whatever amp I think is gonna get me the sound and I'll record it. And if I like the tone, yep, did well. Just in case I might need to come back and redo the take or do something else, I'll make some notes of what guitar I used in the notes on the software or the recording program, and I'll plug this in and capture that signal path. So the entire like recording signal path, if I grab the same guitar the next time, in here I have captured the amp head that I used, whatever speaker and microphone combination I used, and run it back in here, and it captures the whole signal path. So for me, it was it immediately became an invaluable recording tool because I could do somebody would send me an MP3 and I'd record a part over it, profile that sound, and then if I used the same, I could take the same amp to a gig, and come home and see, okay, so and so he liked half this song, but the other half of what I played, he wanted me to redo a section of it. My rig is still in my car, and I don't remember what maybe I should have taken better notes, but I don't remember what mic I used or where.
Or even good luck.
Or take pictures, right? But I can go then plug in, this. If I captured that signal after recording the take, I've done it. I've plugged in this, used the profile to do that punch in, essentially, send it back the MP3, and nobody's ever called me on it. Nobody's ever noticed that that's what I did. So while I don't think it's 100%, I would give it credit for being 95, 97% accurate. So it's close enough. Again, for recording, once you run it through the illusion, as we say, of reverb and delay and post EQ and all of that stuff, like that 3% difference disappears in a hurry, and you get a sound that's close enough. And in some cases, just from take to take, again, I did it for a punch in and they didn't know. So it gets really, really close to that exact signal path. But it would be really hard for me to recreate if I hadn't captured that profile first, to then go back and try and dial it in. It's the same problem you have with the real amp. So for me, that's what it is. I basically use this to document my studio recording setups, and for future use, go back to them, whether I actually have the physical amp with me or not.
Profile time.
Profile time. All right, so the way that this is set up is the guitar, the famous Heritage, is going to plug straight into the front here of the Kemper, and that is how you get the guitar signal to play through both the real amp and the profile. So there she is. Almost like an effects loop, there's a 1/4-inch send back here that goes to the front of the amp. So send in that guitar signal. When you're playing on the amp itself, it literally is just going straight through into here.
Settings on the amp. The way we set it.
The amp speaker cable goes out to the cab. It's got that SM57 mic'd up, and the SM57 comes back in here. So kind of like putting the amp in the effects loop of the Kemper. So what it'll do when it profiles is it'll mute the guitar for a minute and send all its test signals out here to the amp. The 57 will capture it and come back here, and it'll do its thing, make its awful noises, and after about a minute, you'll have your profile. And then from here, if you can see my little display here, it'll say Kemper amp and the reference amp. The reference amp is the real amp bypassing the profile, and when you switch over to here, it'll mute the signal. We'll still hear the real cab, but it'll mute the signal going to the amp, and your playback will hear just the profile. And so this is how you compare, how good of a profile did I get? How close is it to the reference amp? You can A/B it. When we do the profile, there'll be one other thing will show up here called refine, and that is where you actually get to play guitar through both at the same time, and it'll measure, kind of fine tune it basically to use an actual guitar signal to fine tune its profile, its copy of the real thing. And when you're happy with it, you save it and move on to another profile. So simple process, takes a couple minutes. And
Okay,
shall we do it?
let's try it.
Okay. You ready for some gnarly sounds? Start profiling.
It's scaring me.
Yeah. Here comes the really scary one. Okay. So there it is.
That is?
So now that is it. It has created a profile. So now you can see we've got the Kemper amp, the profile, the reference amp. We can check. We can look at refining it if we want to, and if we don't like it at all, we just start over. So that's pretty much it. If you want to play on it a little bit and compare an A/B, we can do that, and then if we don't think it's very close, we can have you refine it, or we can start over. But that's it.
Okay.
That's the process.
Let's try it. What's on now? The amplifier?
That's the Kemper.
So I guess the question now would be, when we play it back, can we hear the difference?
Yeah, and you'll probably be able to hear a little bit of difference. The thing that I would like to that I'd be curious, either as a listener or as you guys, is tried to switch it while you were playing up high because, like you were saying, some of those overtones.
Yep.
Does it sing like the original?
Right.
When you're playing down some lower chords, does it have the same kind of girth?
Yep.
That the original would have? It also, I found some profiles do this really well for me. But rolling back the volume knob, it should on the guitar should clean up similar way because what it's profiling is kind of the full range of input, a soft input to a hard input, and how much is the input and how hard of a signal it's getting hit with makes it clip. So when you roll that back on the profile, it should clean up the same way that the amp does.
And it also should, even if I leave the volume up, it's like the thing about that amp is almost with no volume change. It's almost like I've had people say, "What kind of effect is that? You mean like this?" I go, "It's a really invisible pedal." Right? It gets darker as you turn the volume down.
So yeah, do like a couple open chords, light and hard, and I'll switch to we're on the Kemper right now, but then I'll switch it to the real amp, and if you can do roughly the same thing, you've got a pretty straight head comparison.
Okay.
With your magic foot switch.
Okay.
And then roughly the same thing here. I'll switch to the actual amp.
Handles it about the same, doesn't it? Has a little bit more of that bluesier thing.
Yeah,
that
I'll
backs
switch
up.
back to
Is this the Kemper?
This is the big one.
Let's listen to it on the recording. That sounds, from where we're sitting,
Yeah.
that sounds the way it should sound.
And you can, if you didn't think it did, you could hit the refine and theoretically get it a little bit closer. But sometimes you can get the first try is good enough, and yeah, see how close you can get it.
I think that really the bottom line is really needs to come down, and we have to ask Pat what he thinks. Thumbs up, thumbs down, because Pat.
Has he recovered from all the noise?
I'm sorry, he's taking a nap
He likes
again.
it?
So.
All right.
Okay, this is the GA40 profile with the Heritage. Yeah, same deal.
Same deal. Yep. So yeah, it's really nice, and the nice thing that it's at least from my ears, it sounds like the personality of the amp never disappears.
Yeah, that's
And it
true.
stays relatively the same volume too. That's what's also nice is it's like cleaning up and cranking, but the actual output level of it stays relatively similar.
Can you change it to the first GA40 one that I did a profile on?
Yeah. There's two. Which one?
I don't know.
You did too. I think you did. If I look at my thing, there are only.
Let's do this, the first one. Not two, but that one. Now this is recorded with just the Sennheiser 609 without the 441. So this is a same amp, set exactly the same, but with a different microphone.
This is.
You can hear it's much brighter. Let's take a break here for a second while we're doing the GA40 and the Kemper, and let's actually go back and hear the sound of the Heritage with the Amber Spirit of 59 pickups in the GA40 itself using the same mic, which is the Sennheiser E609. I'll just do a little quick little clip thing going back and forth of me trying to play as close as possible just to hear what they sound like. The actual live amplifier and the Kemper.
Okay.
Okay. Wow.
I like how that one cleans up.
Live performance. People, if you go to the Kemper site, it has a whole list of people who are using these for live performance, touring pros, and all kinds of stuff like that. What are your thoughts on that?
I think probably the person who loves these the most, honestly, would be the sound guy in a live performance because let's say that I'm used to tour. Let's pretend I could be Joe Bonamassa and
Okay.
tour with, and I had skills. I could tour with real tube amps and 100 waters, and there's 6 or 7 of them with a whole row of what's he got 4 tweeds right now.
Yeah, it uses high-powered twins.
Yeah. Okay, the
4
amount
or
of
6
stage
of them.
volume that creates.
Yeah.
For a sound guy can be problematic. Hence, you'll see him with his 4 high-powered twins. Also has 4 plexiglass shields on there.
Yep.
Because the stage volume's enormous.
Massive.
So he's got those things up there. They're mic'd up. The poor sound guy in the back, you can hear those high-powered twins from anywhere without the PA going. He's got to mic those up and run them through the PA, which now his sound through the PA is trying to blend, but it just made Joe's sound that much louder. So we've got this stage volume and the PA to compete with the drummers going, and I got to get him up there, and vocals have to go on top of all those. Pretty soon the whole venue's too loud.
Right.
And
we run into that every once in a while, don't we, at concerts?
Just about every time you go to a concert.
Every time.
And see that. And I've seen a couple of concerts. What really kind of got me thinking from that point of view was I've gone to shows where one band had tube amps on stage and then next band didn't. Ran Kempers or NX effects or something. And like, whoa, the overall band sound as an audience member sounded better from the guys using these because the blend was better. The mix fit the room. The stage volume didn't overpower the room and then have the guy running the PA trying to overpower that.
That was educational for us people. I'm just telling you right now.
Did you learn something?
That's what I'm saying is I learned a little something. That's what I'm saying. Oh.
Did you have fun?
We learned a little something
Good.
here. From what we hear over our monitors, we literally can't tell when you switched between one and another. It kind of upsets me a little bit because I don't want that to be like that because I'm old and Well, you're a tube amp guy. You don't want it to have happened either, but yet,
No.
What can you say?
But if you can get that close with, I mean, we were talking about it, like you've installed a fan in that thing, you have to make some concessions when you go play the thing outdoors to be careful of the heat. You got to baby the thing because it's...
Yeah. If I lose a transformer in it...
Yeah, what are you going to do?
Bad news. So sonically, for recording, it sounded
really good.
really, really good.
Yeah.
So maybe what we'll do is we'll borrow this back and we'll make a whole bunch of profiles of it and then sell them for a ton of dough. We'll cut you in for 2 to 3%.
Can I have 5 if I come help?
He's going to go for the 5. No. Come on, Pat.
No.
Thanks, Jeremy. This has really been really great, and we're running some stuff on your store.
What was the name of that store again?
5 Star Guitars, which is not too far from here in Beaverton.
Where's it located?
Beaverton, Oregon. And right off of Highway 26. And
does it have a phone? Do you guys have phones there?
He doesn't need to because it's running underneath the screen.
Yeah,
can't you see that?
5starguitars.com will get you all sorts of stuff. But yeah, there's phone numbers, emails, and websites. And we actually, believe it or not, in 2019 have a physical store location. I know.
Wow.
I know, it's weird.
And that's Joff,
Jeep,
and Jeremy.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And all 3 of you are guitar players.
Yeah. Yep. Joff and I started at the store. I'm afraid to even say how many years ago. I'm teaching lessons there, and Jeep, who is John Paul to JP to Jeep, as he says, before he even had a say. So he's been Jeep.
John Paul.
Yeah. John Paul, one word for those of you who need money from him.
Is that French?
Yeah, and so is his last name. Simonet.
Yeah.
You can, but yeah, all three of us are guitar players, and that's how. I mean, honestly, you can't be in this business if you can't be in it for the money. So you got to be in it for some other reason, and it's because we love gear, love
Yep, we know
everything
all
about
about that. That's great.
we even
That's
tolerate
very
guitar
cool.
players. So
Wow.
yeah. Well, thank you
Thanks.
so much for having me on.
No, no, no. Thank you.
It's a dream come true, actually, to be on the Doug and Pat
Thank
show.
you, Jeremy.
Yeah, you're going to be almost as famous as us pretty soon.
Someday, yeah.
We're modern. Before we let you go, we should remind you that you can go to the Doug and Pat Show website that is running underneath your screen right there. And when you're at that website, if you're not buying Viagra or some other sort of thing that we've been hacked,
Sell us.
is that what it is? Do we get more money in our distribution deal with that? Well, it gives you something to look forward to. But in case it hasn't been hacked, you can also see all of the shows. You can also go to our merchandise area, which is very exciting because besides the other stuff that we mentioned before, you can also get Doug and Pat Show shirts. You can get the short sleeve shirt, small logo, large logo, long sleeve shirts, very popular now. Small logo only, yeah. And also, of course, the Doug and Pat Show hat. You can email us at our email address that's running below, and we will get back to you instantaneously because we're modern, especially after this show today.
Yeah.
Hey, what's this? This looks like a Van Halen
This is
guitar.
one of them there Fenders.
Oh, yeah?
It's an EVH made by Fender.
Ah,
And I think they're made in Mexico, but just a screaming guitar, kind of a one-trick pony.
yeah.
You know that.
Pretty good trick.
Yeah.
Interesting. Maybe you'll start your own show someday and you can do demos on those.
Yeah.
Give them something to look forward to.
Stand by.
We will do our next show on the solid state version of the Fender Deluxe that they're doing now and compare it to a real mid 60s Fender Deluxe Reverb. And then we're also going to be working with Five Star Guitar to check out some of the new Les Pauls that they're making.
Yep.
How much are those guitars now? Some
Way
of them?
too much. Anywhere from $8,000 to $10,000, and but they are supposed to be. This version is supposed to be the absolute best, closest to the 5960s.
Wow. I wonder what someone would be able to do if they actually had a 59 or 60 and bring it and sit them
We'll
side by
see.
side like we do.
We'll see.
We're going to have that waiting for you. We also might be selling on our website at a reasonable price some of the profiles of some of our amplifiers that we have here in the back, including the Vox, J40s, and other great amplifiers. That would be for you Kemper owners. So look forward to that.
All right.
That's about all we got for today.
That's it.
I'm Doug.
And I'm Pat.
Hey, we'll see you next time.
Bye.
But this, maybe another point to make too, is that, with those forum guys that were like, oh, I'm going to sell all my amps, profile all my amps, sell them all, and just have this, it had the opposite effect on me. I got this thing, and just like the Line 6 stuff did back in the day, where I'm reading through the manual and, oh, vintage ones, had this and the other, and you could mod it this way, and it was used by so and so on such and such a record. It's like the mythology that creates. The same thing sort of happens here. Is now I get to try out somebody's profile of a real Dumble. Well, the chances I'm ever gonna get to even see one of those
Yeah.
from closer than
Yeah, I mean,
my third row.
80 grand buys you a nice one from what I hear.
It also buys you a Tesla, right? So
Does. Like yours with the Hemi in it.
Almost.
So, but what it did though is, I could basically get to test drive other people's real Princetons.
Yeah.
Like, man, I love the sound of a Princeton. A 64 Princeton, there's 5 of them in here, and I love that sound. I want to find a real one. And so it really actually did the opposite for me, where it just got me really excited about certain amps that I got to try.
Yeah.
And
So
so
you started going, oh, if this sounds good with that Princeton thing, I wonder what a real one sounds like. Kind of whet your appetite, maybe.
yeah, and so what will happen to me is if we profile your Vox, it's not what won't happen to me is like, well, I've checked that one off the list. I don't need to go looking for one of those if I really like it. Be like, man, I play through this profile. I record with this profile all the time. What if I could find a real one?
Yeah.
And so for me, it just kind of it did the opposite. I think a lot of people justify their purchase of one of these like it's going to be a good financial decision. I'll sell all my amps and break even or come out ahead on
Yeah.
one of these. It did I got poor when I got this thing because I had to go looking for all of those cool amps that I got to try. So